Welcome to Small Talk Podcast. This is Taxed and Relaxed with Rachel from Chadwick Accountants.
Hello and welcome everyone to this special podcast on tour recorded right here at the Alcester Academy Careers Fair in Alcester in Warwickshire. Today we're deep diving into the world of opportunities, exploring how to connect with employers, making a lasting impression and choosing the right path that aligns with your goals and passions. We're so excited to be talking directly to students, job seekers and ambitious individuals exploring their future paths, as well as the local councillors and even the mayor. Today we're deep diving into the world of finance, people's perceptions of finance and what a career in finance really does look like, as well as talking to individuals about their career paths so far and their experiences that they're going to share with us today. So put the kettle on, sit back and soak in this inspiration. Let's explore what a career in finance really looks like. I'm Rachel Chadwick Harrison from Chadwick Accountants, your host. Right, so we're here with Michael, also from Year 11. Welcome, Michael. It's lovely to have you here today.
Thank you.
Let's start off with what are you studying at GCSE level?
At the moment, I am studying French, history, stats and further maths, and also iMedia.
Fantastic. And have you had a thought about where those subjects will take you in your career path?
Yeah, I'm quite interested in business and possibly finance as well. So after GCSE, I would like to go to sixth form and study business, economics and history.
Fantastic. There seems to be a lot of people wanting to study business and economics. And it can give you such a wide variety of industries to choose from afterwards, which is fantastic. So when you think about a career in finance, what do you envision?
Well, I envision working with just maths. I like maths. I like numbers. I like working with numbers, and I also like sorting people's money out. So I like doing that.
Well, if you choose a career as an accountant, you definitely get to help sort people's money out, help them plan. But you'd be amazed how much of finance is actually people skills and talking to people and helping them. With the rise of automation, so much more is done by computers and software that actually the role of the accountant becomes more of advisory and help, knowing the tax laws, knowing how to apply that. So there is some calculation and maths there, but it is really about supporting people through that journey. But it's not limited to just accountancy. A career in finance could mean a career in banking and investment and hedging funds and all sorts of really, really wacky, funny things that you can do. Equally, there's a career in industry as well, whether that is starting at sort of a bookkeeper level and doing a lot of data entry, moving on towards being a manager and managing a team. Again, people skills required. But I find these days, more and more, it is people skills in almost every job because of the rise of automation. What's very interesting is to see how this rise in automation actually creates jobs as well, because you need people who can create the software, who understand further maths and understand accountancy and how it should be applied and how it should look the other end. Have you ever considered a career in looking at finance systems or systems in general?
Not really. It hasn't really crossed my mind. I'm still looking to find the exact role I want to do in the future, job. And I'm not sure whether to go to university or do an apprenticeship, but it's always an option between two.
Definitely, and both offer so much. I do think that university can give you a broader array of options afterwards, whereas an apprenticeship is ideal if you sort of know what you want to do or, generally know the area you want to get into, because it can pigeonhole you into one particular area. But if you know that you want to be an accountant, an apprenticeship is fantastic. I mean, we have a few apprentices ourselves, and some have come straight from school, some have come later on in life, and they're coming and then they're having the employer pay for the exams and the study, which is nice. So unlike university, where you do end up with quite a bit of debt that you've got to repay, they end up with everything paid for. But again, they are then pigeonholed into that career sector because that's where all your qualifications are, and it's quite specific. So apprenticeships are fantastic if you know what you want to do. If you don't, university can give you more options later on.
Do you think the careers fair today might help you a little bit in that respect?
Yeah, I think it will. I think it will show me different industries and what they are about from different sectors, finance and systems, as you said. Learn more about what I want to do in the future.
Yeah.
One of the great things about finance is that you're not restricted to an industry, though. You can do finance in any industry. You can work in manufacturing and learn manufacturing in and out. You can work in software development. You can work in construction because the tax is so different there as well. And you can specialise in an industry in finance. But you can also take that skill set and move to a different industry. So I think it's one of the few roles out there. You've got your other sort of business support services like your HR and administration, that if there is a problem in an industry, if economics change and, suddenly construction isn't doing very well, you can switch your skill set to another industry quite easily, whereas with other jobs, that's perhaps not quite as easy to do.
Can I ask a question?
You can ask as many questions as you want.
What was your career path to where you are now?
What a fantastic question. Do we have all day? What I would say is I left school and I started college and I didn't finish college. My personal circumstances meant that I needed to earn an income. So I worked at a financial planner's and I did some evening courses because I wanted to still have some qualifications. And from that I went into banking, which was really, really interesting, and I loved it. I loved being able to speak to people, to help them with their finances. I found maths and science were always my strengths, so I knew I was going to go into one. I really enjoyed that aspect of the job, and I really wanted to do management because I do like people, I get on well with people. I thought that was a career path for me. And I remember speaking to my branch manager at the time and said, I want your job. How do I get your job? And she said, you need management experience. And I said, fantastic. How do I get that? She said, you won't get that here. I'm like, right. Okay. So I left the banking sector and I went to work at bookmakers to get the management experience. So I joined as a deputy manager, worked my way up to manager. And then we had the good old banking crash. And I thought, maybe banking isn't so safe. Maybe I will look at something else instead. So I picked up accountancy. I started studying accountancy, and with my first qualification I got a role in a company and I was quickly promoted up to their in-house accountant. I had a lot of support and a lot of help from the employers to pay for my qualifications, and from there I just worked my way up. I was group financial controller of a pretty big company over in Stratford-upon-Avon, and I've worked as head of finance roles until I set up my own business 3.5 years ago now, which has gone from strength to strength, and it is by far my favourite job.
Do you reckon AI could do what you're doing now, your job?
No. It is a very good question, and it was something I personally was quite worried about when I first got into finance. And I remember going to see a client who had recently implemented Xero and said it did all the bookkeeping for her, and that this year was going to be the easiest year after. And I thought, oh God, is it going to replace what I do? And I went down there and the client had categorised everything to direct expenses. And I thought, we have a job yet. And it took the longest to do. I had to unpick everything she'd done and redo it, and it took twice as long as it normally did. But more and more so, AI just doesn't give the advice. It doesn't know the tax laws. I mean, eventually, perhaps in 10 years, it might know the tax laws. It might give some advice. But really, that just shows that the future of finance is in the advisory, not in the spreadsheet numbers. Obviously, you need an understanding of it. You need to be able to predict things. You know, we do a lot of financial modelling, looking at different products and what their life cycle is. But you can't, that information is what we would call intangible information. You can't say every product is going to last a year. You don't know that. The trends change, and you can do an element of prediction from history, but the people who know it are the industry experts. So the advisory side, I think, is always going to be there in finance. Brill, absolute pleasure to meet you. We'll see you at the Careers Fair later, and you can ask loads more questions.
I will.
So we're now here with Maya, who's also in Year 11. Why don't you start us off by telling us what GCSEs you picked and why?
History. So I feel like history, it's like a part of how we've come to be as like people. We've learnt from everything. Like, it's interesting to know how we've learned and how we've become where we are today. I also did German as well, which links in with my history. I just love learning about all the different nuances different languages have. I also did performing arts as well. Just like the acting side of it, it's the BTEC award as well. And I also did statistics and further maths, just to give like a more in-depth experience of maths.
That's fantastic. You've got some real different choices there. You've got your real academic subjects and then some of your more creative ones as well. So it's a really nice balance. I imagine there aren't too many students that do mix that up. That's fantastic to hear. So have you thought about what career path you might want and how you might get there?
I've thought about like going into law or into policing and like doing maths, English and history at A-level.
So you potentially might do 3 different things at A-level, which still give you a broad array of opportunities. And should you decide that that isn't the career path for you, you'll still have plenty of other options. Have you considered perhaps doing an apprenticeship in either of those?
Yes, I have. I've been looking up recently like apprenticeships in solicitorial work and paralegals as well.
It'd be a fantastic way to get your feet on the ground in the job and actually realise what that job actually is like in reality and whether it's something you want to do, because so many people spend a long time studying, spend a lot of money studying, get into a job and think, actually I don't really like the day-to-day of this. I envisioned it would be completely different. So if you ever thought about a career in finance, what do you envision that looks like?
That's a good question. Probably something that's very maths based, like you work with all different sorts of people. Something that gives you more of like a confidence and understanding of your own money as well.
It's a common preconception that you need to be really good at maths to have a career in finance. I'm not fantastic at maths, but I know how to use a calculator and I know whether things look quite right. And actually, what you really need in a career in finance is a good solid understanding of IT. That's a massive help in this day and age. And you need to be able to speak to people. You need to have the confidence in what you're doing. So many people will come and say, oh, I want it this way, I want it that way. You need to have the confidence to say, oh, that's not quite legal. That's a bit grey. I wouldn't do that. And you need to be able to communicate the finances to people who are non-finance people in a way that they understand. So much of a career in finance is actually about people and speaking to people rather than the hardcore maths. If you go into something like coding and designing systems, that's where more of your maths comes in and being able to do that. But even products like ChatGPT are starting to replace coding and being able to write code. So it's going to be an interesting few years to see where things go. So are there any particular exhibitors you want to see today at the Careers Fair?
Probably more of like the apprentice side of things, because like we don't see much of that. We normally see like the traditional routes. We don't see how the apprenticeship way can get us into the different systems that we want to do. I'm probably also interested in looking at other stuff that I haven't necessarily thought about, just to give myself the range of options that I would probably need to do after A-level.
That's really, really great to hear. An apprenticeship is a fantastic route if you know where you want to go. If you don't know where you want to go, you probably want to pick something more broader. I mean, we have an apprentice with us that joined straight out of school at 16, and he will be a fully qualified accountant by 20, which is amazing. Wow. But he knows what he wants to do, and that is the right choice for him. If you don't know what you want to do, an apprenticeship isn't ideal. But if you do, it's fantastic because it will give you a leg above your competitors, because you will know, you will have your qualification, you will know an industry, and you will have some real world experience. And most apprenticeships these days do lead on to a job. So you're straight into a job rather than coming out of university with a degree and then starting the job application process where you're against everybody else who hasn't got any experience. So I think apprenticeships can be fantastic if you know what you want to do.
If I were going to go into finance, what like qualifications would I need apart from obviously the maths?
It's a great question. And it's interesting, if you know that you're going to go into finance in particular, actually don't necessarily recommend going down the degree route. You end up with a very expensive degree that isn't really valued in the finance world. What they want you to have is a chartered qualification, which is the equivalent of a master's. Now, if you do go down the degree route, and a lot of people do just for the experience of living away from home and being able to manage your budgets and having that fantastic uni life, then you will get 4 or 5 of the exams, depending on what you chose as your degree, written off as an exemption, but you're still going to have 11 or 12 to go. Whereas you can go down an apprenticeship route or even self-study with AAT, which is the Association of Accounting Technicians, and get the same exemptions that will cost you a lot less. Obviously, if you go down the apprenticeship route, it will cost you nothing at all because your employer will pay. But if you want a career in finance and you're set on that, what you really want to get is a Chartered Accountant qualification. So that would be either a CIMA, which is a Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, and ACCA, which is the Association of Certified Chartered Accountants, or an ACA, which is the Association of Chartered Accountants. One of those 3 will get you any job you want in finance, and it will guarantee you a real minimum level of income as well, which is way above what the average person will go into, which is fantastic.
I feel like it's like there are many like preconceptions of finance, like you said with the maths. It's interesting to understand those preconceptions and how different people perceive them and how we can go into different areas without having to have those preconceptions on us all the time.
You're so right. People think that all accountants are great maths whizzes, and when I'm out at dinner, I always get past the bill to separate it out. And I'm like, not a maths genius. I just know how to work a calculator, and I know tax law. Law is a fantastic skill to have in finance, and all the chartered qualifications do have modules on contract law, employment law, and you need to know all those basics as well. So you do get an element of that. I always said if I had my time again, I would have gone down the law route, just because I enjoy finance, but I also enjoy the law aspect of it. And I'm sure in law there's plenty of overlap in finance too, but you do find law, finance, IT, there is a lot of overlap.
Do you think it's a good idea to have careers fairs in schools? Personally, do you think it's going to help you?
Yes, I do, because then it gives me more of an understanding of the area that I want to go into, and gives me the range to explore other areas that I haven't necessarily thought about as well.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Maya.
I'm Rachel Chadwick-Harrison, the Managing Director of Chadwick Accountants and Bookkeepers Limited in Bidford-on-Avon, and I'm here at the Ulster Academy with some very special guests who I'll let introduce themselves.
I'm Mike Dean. I'm Chair of Governors at Alcester Academy. I have 37 years experience in the motor industry before I was privileged to take retirement.
I'm Tim Harrison. I am Vice Chair of Governors here at Alcester Academy. I'm an engineer by trade, so I spent 18 years in the engineering industry before obtaining my own engineering consultancy in Warwickshire.
Yeah, my name is Mike Bow. I'm the Mayor of Alcester. I'm happy to be here today. Strangely enough, my career was also motor industry. I retired 15 or so years ago. Been a councillor for the last 6 years.
Fantastic, and it just goes back to show that it doesn't matter what career you choose, you can change your career path at any walk in life, at any point in time that you decide to, if you're willing to put in the time and effort to do so. How can schools and businesses collaborate to prepare students for future careers?
Well, I think having career fairs like this is a good start. And I'm not sure which one it was, it might have been Mike who made the point that knowing what, I was talking to a couple of the girls who were leading me around here today, and I was saying to them that what students at this age think they want to do, and they're very excited about and want to pursue that opportunity in a few years' time, might be in the same industry but doing a different role, a different job. Mm-hmm. And you don't become the managing director of a business as soon as you leave education. It takes a while, but you don't necessarily know that the opportunity to be the managing director exists within that particular field of environment. So I think that's and I was talking to a lady on your stand who said that she studied in textiles and fabrics, and now she's in an accountancy firm and she's just about to start her apprenticeship, and I said to the two girls, see what I mean, that, started in a different one and ended up in in accountancy, and loves it, she tells me.
Yeah, the vast majority of our staff did not start off in a career in finance. We've got an ex-marine biologist, a couple of ex-army people from the creatives and the hair and beauty places, and they've gone into those careers and they haven't been what they wanted. They haven't necessarily provided the stability they wanted or the salary that they wanted, and actually finance is a fantastic fallback if you're great with people. What role do you think financial literacy plays in building a strong community?
Again, put my engineering hat on. One of my, I wouldn't say bugbears, but one of my observations amongst the engineering community is that we're very good technically, but most engineers are, if I put this kindly, slightly financially illiterate. I think having a strong financial background again puts you in a very, very strong position. I probably hold the role I do because, as well as being an engineer, I did have some financial literacy. I understand how things work like that. So I do think it is as an important factor, and it's important that students of this age do start to pick that up and start to understand that.
It underpins everything we do. It underpins our lives. So the greater awareness you can have out there within the community will benefit everybody.
I think it's true to say, though, that you can be the smartest individual in the world in a particular field, but are not very good at maths or not very good at accounting or whatever, and rely on other people to do it for you, which in itself is dangerous, because if you don't know how to check, then you don't know where your money's going fundamentally. But I think generally, people need that basic skill set at least to be able to understand what's happening to their finances and how they might improve those finances.
I mean, if I look at my industry as a very, very small example, I can't believe the number of people who work in my industry that don't understand the difference between cash and revenue. And it's a fundamental understanding that you need if you're going to succeed, and yet they don't understand the difference between cash and revenue. It's quite interesting, really. Yeah.
Before I retired, I was leading a department of 125 mechanics working on high-level cars and vehicles. I couldn't tell you how an engine worked.
So how can we, as an accountancy practice, help local people and businesses manage their finances better?
Maybe awareness of what you can offer to a very broad spectrum of the local population.
I think it's a two-way street with these things. It's a bit like students now looking for a job. You have to find out what the employer is looking for and what you have to offer, and sometimes reshape your own offering to meet the needs of employers.
If I look at what we ask of our accountants, obviously there's the day-to-day running the accounts and everything, but what I look at my accountants to do is understand legislation. Tax legislation is probably the most complex legislation that I ever know. That's where my accountant adds value to me, because they understand the tax legislation. They can advise me in terms of how I make most efficient use of that. So for me, that's where my accountant adds value to my business.
So looking at sustainability and innovation, are there any local government plans to encourage businesses to adopt more sustainable practices?
The agencies that Warwickshire County Council have, the Growth Hub, Chamber of Commerce and the Employability and Skills, and they actually, particularly the Chamber of Commerce, have access to a lot of government funding and investment opportunities, and I think they are reaching out to employers. And
I think from a layman's point of view, the incentivisation that I see seems to be around, I don't know whether it comes under sustainability at all, but it comes around the use of things like EVs. There's massive tax advantages now to EVs, and I can now offer that in lieu of salary It's more cost effective for me. It's actually more cost effective for the employee. So, I mean, I might be wrong, but that's where I see the incentivisation, or the major incentivisation at the moment.
So when we think of the students and what they're looking at in today, what was your dream job when you were this sort of 15, 16 age?
I was going to be an accountant, not really sure. Working as a salesman in the motor industry.
I wanted to be what I described, I can remember it vividly, as an installation electrician. I'm sure that nobody knew what that was, but what I meant that to be was somebody who would wire housing, new houses. And I was offered a job as an apprentice on a company in Birmingham, on a track, wiring the tracks that run through, conveyor belts and all that. And that's not what I want. And I ended up as an apprentice motor mechanic. Through that, I was talking earlier about how things open up for you. I went through a lot of the roles within the retail motor industry, and I ended up being a director of a large PLC group.
I think if I go back to when I was 11, I think my dream was always to become a pilot, and then I had a diagnosis of colour blindness, and that kind of scuppered me for the rest of my life. So my next aim was to the next best thing, which was kind of design aeroplanes, and I nearly got there because I spent 18 years in the aerospace industry, not designing aircraft themselves, but bits of aeroplanes. So I got close enough.
So final question of the day. What's the most surprising thing you've learned about in your time, in your current role?
The most surprising thing is how advanced probably Alcester, as a small town, is in the community of Warwickshire. So I think we punch above our weight in a big way. We are one of 54 councils nationwide, and there's more than 10,000 of them, and we're only one of 54 who have the Gold Quality Award.
Levels of deprivation in our lovely little community, and you look at it, it's beautiful, it's leafy, but in fact, doing some research some years ago now, but we had the two most deprived wards in Warwickshire, and that includes comparison with places like Nuneaton and Rugby. And then seeing that transposed into the students at the school, it has quite an impact on me.
I had a similar thing going into engineering. You do your engineering degree and you learn all these fancy tricks and everything, and how little of it is used. And your degree is actually something to show that you're able to learn, not the value of what you've actually learned. And that was probably one of the most surprising things to me. Yeah.
How important is this careers fair, would you say, to young people, having something like this?
I think it's incredibly helpful for them. And one of the themes that seems to have come through our conversation is one of communication between the students, the school and businesses. And so something like this, which is direct communication, has got to be superb.
Yeah.
I agree. I think the more that we can immerse our young children in this sort of thing and sort of make them aware of what the future holds for them, and the more we can do, the earlier we can do it, I think it's absolutely vital. Yeah.
I think it's really important to point out that it's not just that traditional degree route, that there are many apprenticeships out there that can give you a fantastic career.
I think actually that it broadens the mind and the opportunity for students, because their awareness is probably based around the school, their parents, friends and siblings. So they sort of say to me, you'd like to do this, you want to do that, you want to do that. Coming to a careers fair just broadens the whole approach. I mentioned earlier about the RAF, I don't know how many people would know that there are so many opportunities for apprenticeships and careers within the RAF, not just flying planes. And so I think it has the opportunity to broaden the scope, broaden the experience opportunity for when the time is right for them as students to move into the employment world.
I want to thank you all for coming here, making the time and effort to be here today and help raise awareness to local businesses about the opportunities that are available in the local community for apprenticeships and work experience. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I get a coffee now?
Yes.
I don't do the coffee, so I'm sure.
You have been listening to Taxed and Relaxed, a small talk podcast production.